Remember the first time you asked why, and the adult in the room just stared at you, searching for an answer that never came? Maybe it was about the sky, or where dreams go when you wake up. You kept asking, and eventually, they said, because that's just how it is. What if the most important thing is not having answers, but never stopping the questions? If you find yourself drawn to these kinds of questions, you might want to subscribe or like, only if you want more of this late-night wonder. In ancient Athens, in the 5th century before the Common Era, there was a man who never stopped asking. Socrates. He wandered the agora, the city's crowded marketplace, stopping strangers with questions that seemed simple at first. What is justice? What is courage? But he never let them off easy. Every answer led to another question, peeling back layers until people realized they didn't know as much as they thought. Some found it thrilling. Most found it deeply uncomfortable. Socrates never wrote a single word. His legacy is not a book, but the echo of his questions. He believed that wisdom began with admitting you do not know. For this, the city put him on trial, accused him of corrupting the youth, of making people doubt what everyone else accepted. They sentenced him to death. But the questions did not die. Imagine the agora at dusk, empty now, the stones cooling in the evening air. Somewhere, a single question still echoes, unanswered, across the silent square. The world behind the world. You're lying in bed, half awake, when a shadow glides across your wall. For a moment, your heart skips. What moved? Was it a branch, a car's headlights, something else? You stare at the shape, but the real thing, the thing that made it, remains hidden, just out of reach. Plato, in Athens, nearly 24 centuries ago, built his whole life around that feeling. He believed the world we touch, taste, and see is just a flickering shadow. The real world, he said, is invisible. Not in the sense of ghosts or magic, but in the sense that the truest things, justice, beauty, goodness, can't be picked up or measured. They exist as pure ideas, what he called forms. And these forms are more real than anything you could ever hold in your hand. He tried to explain it with a story. Imagine a group of people chained in a cave since childhood. They can't turn their heads. All they see are shadows on the wall, cast by objects behind them, objects they never glimpse. The prisoners think the shadows are the whole world. They give them names, argue about them, build their lives around them. But the real objects, the things making the shadows, are out of sight, behind a blinding fire. Plato's allegory of the cave isn't just a story about some unlucky people. It's a warning. Most of us, he thought, spend our lives staring at the wall, mistaking flickers for truth. We argue about the shapes, never realizing there's something more solid, more real, just out of view. It's like watching a movie and forgetting it's just light on a screen. You get caught up in the story, the faces, the drama. You laugh, you cry, you flinch when something jumps out. But if you step back, you remember, none of it is really there. It's all a play of shadows, arranged by something you can't see from your seat. Plato founded the academy in Athens, the first school of its kind, to teach people how to turn away from the wall. He wanted his students to look for the patterns behind the chaos, the invisible rules that shape everything. For him, the world of forms was the only place where real knowledge lived. Everything else was just a copy, a smudge, a shadow. If you've ever felt that strange sense that there's something more, some deeper order, some hidden meaning behind the mess of daily life, you've brushed up against Plato's world. He would say you're glimpsing the edge of the real, the place where the mind, not the eyes, does the seeing. And so, in the cave, one person finally stands up. The chains fall away. They turn, slowly, away from the wall, blinking into the light. Virtue is a habit. Try to remember the first time you tried to ride a bike. Not the moment you finally got it, but the awkward, wobbly beginning, your hands gripping the handlebars so tightly your knuckles turned white. The ground seemed to tilt and sway beneath you. You pushed off, maybe with a parent's hand on your back, and for a second you felt weightless. Then the world lurched, and you toppled sideways. Again and again. Each time, you got back up, knees scraped, pride bruised, but a little steadier than before. Aristotle, in Athens, in the 4th century before the Common Era, watched the world with the same kind of patient attention. He saw that being good, truly good, was not something you could just decide or read about in a scroll. It was not a matter of memorizing rules or reciting the right words. It was something you had to do, over and over, until it became part of you. Like learning to ride a bike, virtue was a habit, not a theory. He wrote about this in his book, The Nicomachean Ethics. Aristotle's idea was simple, but it turned the world upside down. He said, "You do not become brave by thinking about courage, or honest by reading about honesty. You become brave by doing brave things, even when you are afraid. You become honest by telling the truth, especially when it is hard. Every action is a tiny rehearsal, a practice run for the person you are becoming." He called this way of living virtue ethics. It is not about following a list of commandments or chasing some perfect ideal like his teacher Plato's world of forms. Instead, it is about building your character, one choice at a time, until goodness feels as natural as breathing. But Aristotle did not stop there. He noticed that every virtue is a balance, a kind of tightrope walk between two extremes. He called this the golden mean. Take courage, for example. Too little, and you are a coward, shrinking from every challenge. Too much, and you are reckless, charging into danger without thinking. True courage lives in the middle, where you feel the fear, but act anyway. The same goes for generosity, or honesty, or self-control. Every virtue is a practiced balance, not a wild swing. Think about the way you learned to ride that bike. At first, you overcorrected, veering wildly left and right. You were either too stiff or too loose, too cautious or too bold. But with each fall, your body learned. Your muscles remembered. Eventually, you found the sweet spot, the invisible line where balance lives. You stopped thinking about every movement. You just rode. Now, imagine something closer to home. Maybe it is the way you make your morning coffee. The first time, you fumbled with the filter, spilled water, guessed at the right amount of grounds. But after 100 mornings, your hands know what to do before your mind catches up. The ritual becomes part of you. Or maybe it is the way you comfort a friend, or keep a promise, or hold your temper when you want to snap. Each time you choose patience, or kindness, or honesty, you are practicing. You are teaching yourself how to be. Aristotle believed that this is how we become who we are, not by grand declarations, but by the quiet, stubborn repetition of small acts. You are not born virtuous. You become virtuous by doing, failing, and trying again. The habits you build, day after day, shape your character more than any single decision ever could. He saw this everywhere in Athens, in the way athletes trained for the games, or musicians practiced their lyre, or citizens learned to speak in the assembly. Excellence, he said, is not an act, but a habit. You are what you repeatedly do. There is something quietly comforting in this. It means you do not have to be perfect all at once. You just have to keep showing up, keep practicing, keep finding the balance. Even when you fall, even when you wobble, you are still moving forward. And then, one day, you realize you are riding without thinking. The ground feels steady. The wind is in your hair. You have become, through years of repetition, the kind of person you once only hoped to be. The world opens up. and you glide forward, quietly satisfied, not because you have reached the end, but because you have learned how to keep going. The rituals that shape us. Think of a family dinner. The clatter of plates, the quiet shuffle as everyone takes their seat. No one needs to be told where to sit or when to pass the rice. It just happens. A silent choreography, practiced so many times, it feels like breathing. Confucius, wandering through ancient China, watched these small rituals and saw something most people missed. He believed that the tiniest acts, a bow, a greeting, the way you pour tea, could hold a whole society together. Not just the grand ceremonies, but the everyday habits that teach us our place, our respect, our care for each other. To Confucius, harmony was not a dream. It was built, moment by moment, in the way a child learns to listen to an elder or a host welcomes a guest. Filial piety, he called it, honoring your parents, your ancestors, your role. Not because someone is watching, but because the ritual itself shapes who you become. It is easy to overlook these patterns, to think they are just old habits. But Confucius saw them as the secret architecture of a nation. Change the ritual, and you change the people. Change the people, and you change the world. So picture a table, set and reset, night after night, generation after generation. The hands may change, but the pattern endures. The ritual speaks, even when no one says a word. Dreaming. You are a butterfly. You know that moment when you wake up from a dream so vivid? For a second, you can't tell if you're still dreaming. The room feels strange. Your own hands look unfamiliar. And for a heartbeat, you wonder if the world you just left behind was the real one. Zhuangzi, a wandering thinker in ancient China, built his whole philosophy around that feeling. Zhuangzi lived in the 4th century before the Common Era, in a world of warlords and wandering teachers. But instead of writing rules or building systems, he told stories, parables that slip through your fingers the moment you try to pin them down. His most famous story is barely a few lines long, but it's haunted people for over 2,000 years. He dreamed he was a butterfly, fluttering through the air, perfectly content. Then he woke up as Zhuangzi. But he couldn't shake the question. Was he Zhuangzi, who had dreamed he was a butterfly? Or a butterfly now dreaming he was Zhuangzi? The line between dream and waking, self and other, had dissolved. He never found the answer. He never tried to. That was the point. Zhuangzi's parables are like trying to find the edge of a shadow in your bedroom at night. You reach for it, but it slips away. The more you chase it, the more it moves. Reality, for Zhuangzi, is always filtered through the lens of your own perspective. What feels solid to you might be a dream to someone else. What you call truth might be just the shape of your own shadow on the wall. Think about the way you argue with someone about what really happened at a family dinner. You both remember the same night, but the details never quite match. The taste of the food, the words that were said, the look someone gave you across the table. Each memory is shaped by the person remembering it. There's no single, final version, just overlapping stories, each one true from a different angle. Zhuangzi believed language itself is part of the problem. Words are like nets we throw over the world, hoping to catch something real. But the world is always moving, always changing shape. The moment you try to describe it, you've already missed it. You can say, "I am awake," or "I am dreaming," but the words never quite fit the experience. They're just shadows on the wall. So what do you do if you can never be sure where the dream ends and waking begins? Zhuangzi's answer was to laugh, to let go of the need for certainty, to move lightly, like a butterfly, from one moment to the next, never clinging too tightly to any one truth. He didn't want to solve the puzzle. He wanted you to feel the strangeness of being alive inside it. Somewhere, a butterfly lands on a sleeping hand. The hand twitches. The butterfly pauses, and for a moment, it's impossible to say who is dreaming whom. The question hangs in the air, soft as wings, and the dream goes on. The blank slate. A newborn's eyes open for the first time. The world is a blur of light and shadow, every shape unfamiliar, every sound a mystery. There is no language yet, no memory, no sense of self, just the raw, unfiltered rush of experience, pouring in through senses that have never been used. For a moment, the mind is untouched, a blank slate, waiting for its first mark. John Locke, writing in 17th century England, looked at this moment and saw something radical. He called it tabula rasa, the blank slate. Locke believed that when you were born, your mind was empty. Not just empty of facts, but empty of even the most basic ideas. Color, number, justice, even the idea of a self. None of these are built in. They are written, one, by the world as it happens to you. This was a dangerous idea. For centuries, people had believed that knowledge was planted in you by God, or by nature, or by the stars. That some people were born wise, or noble, or wicked. That your fate was written before you took your first breath. Locke said, no. Who you are is not a matter of destiny. It is a matter of what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you remember. Every thought, every habit, every fear, all of it is learned. Think about a blank notebook, the kind you buy for school. When you first open it, the pages are smooth, untouched, full of possibility. You could write anything: a love letter, a grocery list, a confession, a lie. The paper does not care. It waits for your hand, your story, your mistakes. That is what Locke saw in the mind of a child. Not a vessel to be filled, not a machine to be programmed, but a surface that records every mark, every pressure, every erasure. Now, imagine your kitchen table. There is a notebook lying open, and someone, maybe you, maybe a child, is learning to write their name. The first letters are shaky, uneven, almost unrecognizable. But with each attempt, the hand grows steadier. The page fills up with practice, with error, with discovery. The notebook becomes a record of everything that happened. The spilled juice, the doodles in the margin, the words copied from a parent's voice. Nothing is there by magic. Every mark is the result of something that happened, some moment of attention, or accident, or repetition. Locke's idea is unsettling, because it means there is no secret script inside you, no hidden destiny. If you grew up in a different house, with different parents, in a different country, you would be someone else. Your favorite color, your deepest fear, the way you laugh, all of it could have been different. You are not the author of your own beginning. You are the page, and the world is the pen. It is easy to feel lost in this. If everything is learned, then what is truly yours? Where do you end and the world begins? Locke would say, you are the sum of your experiences, nothing more, nothing less. The mind is not a mirror reflecting some eternal truth. It is a diary, written day by day, line by line, by everything that happens to you. Sometimes, this is a relief. If you are not born broken, you can be changed. If you are not born wise, you can learn. But it is also a little terrifying. There is no safety net, no guarantee. The world can write anything it wants on you, and you cannot erase the marks. Locke never claimed this was easy. He just insisted it was true. The mind at birth is a blank slate. Knowledge comes from experience. Who you are is shaped by what happens to you, not by fate or nature. Somewhere, a page is filling with words. The story is not finished. The next mark could be anything. The state of nature. You know that moment in a crowded elevator when everyone stands silent, eyes fixed on the glowing numbers, and nobody wants to be the one to press the button. The air gets heavy. Each person waits, hoping someone else will act first. Now, stretch that feeling out, not just for a few seconds, but for a lifetime. That's the world Thomas Hobbes imagined in 17th century England as he wrote his book Leviathan. Hobbes pictured a world with no rules, no authority, no one in charge. He called it the state of nature. In that world, life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Not because people are monsters, but because everyone is afraid. If you can't trust anyone, you can't relax. Every neighbor is a possible threat. Every shadow could be danger. Freedom, in this world, is just another word for being alone in the dark. So why do we accept rules, laws, governance? Not because we love being told what to do. Hobbes says we make a silent deal, a social contract. We give up a little freedom so we can sleep at night. We let someone else press the button so the elevator moves at all. And in that silent, crowded box, just before the doors open, a single hand finally reaches for the button. The tension hangs there, unresolved. God or nature? You stand in a forest, breath held, as the hush of leaves and the slow pulse of green light press in from every side. For a moment, you feel it, the sense that nothing here is separate. The roots beneath your feet, the birds overhead, the air itself, all tangled in a single, silent conversation. Baruch Spinoza, walking the flat, wind-swept fields of 17th century Netherlands, felt that same hush. But where most saw a world of things, trees, rivers, people, God, Spinoza saw only one thing, endlessly unfolding. He called it Deus sive natura, God, or nature. Not a distant creator, not a king in the clouds, but the totality of everything that is. Every law, every atom, every thought. There is no outside, no exception. Just the endless, seamless fabric of reality. It sounds peaceful, almost comforting. But Spinoza's vision is stranger than it first appears. He was excommunicated from his Jewish community for it, cast out, forbidden to speak or be spoken to. Because Spinoza's God does not listen to prayers. Spinoza's God does not make choices. In his world, everything is determined. Every heartbeat, every heartbreak, every hope. The orbit of a planet, the fall of a sparrow, the words you are hearing now, all of it, flowing from the same necessity, like water down a slope. Think of a river. You can watch a single drop, tumbling and spinning, caught in eddies, bouncing off stones. It looks free, unpredictable. But if you could see the whole river at once, you'd know. Every drop is following the same current, shaped by the banks, the rain, the pull of gravity. There is no moment where the water chooses to turn left or right. It just moves, because it must. Spinoza believed people are like that too. You feel like you choose to speak, to love, to turn away. But every thought, every desire, every action is just the necessary unfolding of nature. Free will, he said, is a story we tell ourselves because we do not see the whole river. We are the leaf, not the current. It is a strange comfort and a strange terror. If everything is one, then nothing is ever truly lost. But if everything is determined, then even your longing for freedom is just another ripple in the stream. Spinoza's world is a world without miracles. without exceptions, without escape. Only the endless, silent logic of nature, working itself out in every direction at once. So next time you find yourself in a forest or lying awake at night, wondering if you could have chosen differently, remember Spinoza. There is no outside, no exception, only the river and the leaf and the current that carries both. A single leaf drifts in the current, spinning slowly, neither lost nor found. The river widens, and the unity of all things lingers, quiet and unbroken. I think, therefore I am. You know that strange, weightless moment when you first wake up, and for a split second, you're not sure if you're still dreaming? The room is familiar, but the edges feel wrong. Your mind reaches for something solid, but everything slips through your fingers. For René Descartes, that feeling wasn't just a passing confusion. It was the starting point for everything. 17th century France. Descartes sits alone, writing his meditations on first philosophy. He decides to doubt everything. Not just the things that are easy to question, like rumors or memories, but the things that feel most certain. The warmth of the fire, the sound of his own heartbeat, even the rules of mathematics. What if some trickster, some evil genius, is fooling him at every turn? What if every single thing he believes is a lie? He pushes further. He doubts his senses. He doubts the world. He doubts his own body. He even doubts the rules of logic. It's like standing in front of a mirror and seeing only your own eyes looking back. No background, no frame, just the fact of looking. Everything else could be a trick, but the act of seeing, the act of doubting, is real. Descartes realizes, even if he is being deceived, even if everything is a dream, there must be something doing the doubting. There must be a thinker, even if the world is fake. Cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. It's not a boast. It's a last foothold on the edge of the void. Descartes isn't saying he knows who he is, or what he is, or where he is. He's saying that the act of thinking, even if it's just doubting, or fearing, or wondering, proves that something exists. The only thing he can't doubt is that he is doubting. It's a weird kind of certainty, not the kind you get from a locked door or a signed contract, more like the certainty you feel when you touch your own pulse in the dark. You can't see your face, you can't see the room, but you know there's something alive, something aware, right here. Everything else could be a dream, but the dreamer is real. Think about the last time you stared at your phone in the middle of the night, half awake, scrolling through messages you barely remember sending. The world outside your blanket could be anything. But the feeling of confusion, the flicker of doubt, the tiny voice asking, "Is this real?" That's the one thing you can't fake. Even if you're wrong about everything else, you're not wrong about being the one who wonders. Descartes called this radical doubt. He didn't do it to make people anxious, though it's hard not to feel a little vertigo when you follow him down this path. He wanted to find something that couldn't be shaken, no matter how hard you tried. And all he found was the echo of his own mind, bouncing back from the walls of an empty room. It's unsettling, isn't it? The idea that the only thing you can be sure of is the fact that you're asking questions at all. That everything else, your memories, your senses, even the ground under your feet, could be a trick. But the questioner is real. The doubter is real. The one who wonders exists. So Descartes sits, pen in hand, surrounded by silence. The world might be a dream, but the act of dreaming is proof enough. In the end, all that remains is a single thought, echoing in an empty room. The limits of reason. You only notice the bucket is empty when you reach for water and your hand comes up dry. All this time, a slow leak, drop by drop, and you never saw it. David Hume, in 18th century Scotland, looked at the way we trust the world to make sense. He watched people say, "The sun rises because it always has," or "Fire burns because it always does." But Hume asked, have you ever actually seen one thing cause another? Or do you just see one thing, then another, and your mind stitches them together out of habit? It's like reaching for the light switch in a hotel room, flicking it, and expecting the lamp to glow. Most of the time, it works. But if it doesn't, you stand there, confused, as if the world itself is broken. Hume's point is that our belief in cause and effect is just that, a belief, built from repetition, not from certainty. We never see the secret thread tying one event to the next. We just get used to the pattern and call it truth. Most of what you know is like that bucket. You trust it's full until the moment you need it. Then you reach out, and your hand finds nothing but the dry bottom. Maybe you feel it now, that quiet doubt, waiting in the dark, just beneath your habits. The mirror. You cannot remove. Try to remember the first time you put on a pair of glasses. Maybe you were a kid, squinting at the board, and suddenly the world snapped into focus. But what if you could never take them off? What if every color, every shape, every distance was filtered through lenses you didn't even know you were wearing? Immanuel Kant, living in 18th century Prussia, believed that's exactly what it's like to be human. He spent years in the city of Königsberg, walking the same streets at the same hour every day, thinking about a problem that had haunted philosophers for centuries. How do we know what's real? David Hume had already shaken the ground by saying we never see causes, only patterns. But Kant went further. He said the world itself, the space you move through, the time you feel passing, is not out there, waiting to be discovered. It's in here, built into your mind, like a pair of invisible glasses you can never remove. It's a weird idea. You wake up, you see your room, you feel the bed under your body. It all seems so direct, so obvious. But Kant said, no, your mind is shaping everything before you even notice. Space and time are not properties of the universe. They are the frames your mind uses to organize experience. Like a camera that always shoots in the same aspect ratio, or a phone that autocorrects every word you type, even when you wish it wouldn't. Think about it like this. Imagine you're in your kitchen, pouring coffee. The mug, the counter, the clock on the wall, they all seem to exist in space and time. But Kant would say, you're not seeing the world as it is. You're seeing the world as your mind makes it possible to see. The kitchen is not just out there. It's also in here, shaped by the way your mind arranges everything into before and after, near and far. And it's not just about perception. Kant thought morality worked the same way. He called it the categorical imperative. He said, don't ask what will happen if you do something. Ask if you could will everyone, everywhere, to do the same. Could you live in a world where everyone lied, or stole, or broke promises? If not, then you shouldn't do it, no matter the outcome. Morality, for Kant, is not about chasing good results. It's about acting on principles that could be universal, rules that would make sense for anyone, anywhere, wearing the same invisible glasses. Kant wrote all this in a book called The Critique of Pure Reason. It's not an easy read, but the core is simple and a little unsettling. You will never see the world as it is. You will only ever see the world as your mind allows you to see it. Like someone trying to wipe a smudge from their vision, only to realize the mark is on the lens itself, not the world outside. So picture this. Someone standing in a bright room, reaching up, trying to take off a pair of glasses they can't feel, can't see, can't remove. The world stays colored, shaped, measured by something they can never escape. And the room grows larger, and the glasses remain, invisible and inescapable. as the world keeps unfolding through them. The Dialectic of History. Imagine a river at dawn. The water glides quietly, then splits around a stony island, each current swirling in its own direction. For a moment, it looks like the river is divided forever. But downstream, the two streams twist and crash together, mixing into something new, always moving forward. G.W.F. Hegel, a German philosopher in the 19th century, saw history as this kind of river. Not a straight line, not a calm pond, but a restless flow of ideas, always splitting, always rejoining, never still. Hegel's most unsettling thought was that every conflict, every contradiction, is not a mistake. It is the engine of progress. The world does not move forward in spite of its arguments. It moves forward because of them. Hegel called this the dialectic. Every idea, a thesis, eventually meets its opposite, the antithesis. The two clash, resist, and seem to cancel each other out. But out of their struggle, something new appears. The synthesis. Not a simple compromise, but a transformation. The river does not just return to what it was, it becomes something it could never have been without the split. He wrote about this in his book, Phenomenology of Spirit. It is not an easy read. Hegel's sentences twist and double back, like the river itself. But the core is simple and a little disturbing. Reason unfolds through history, not as a gentle revelation, but as a series of necessary collisions. Every certainty you hold will one day meet its opposite, and when they collide, you will not be the same. If you have ever argued with someone you love, really argued, not just about what to eat for dinner, but about something that matters, you know this feeling. The room grows tense, voices rise. For a while, it seems like you are drifting apart, each defending your own bank of the river. But then, sometimes, something shifts. You see a piece of their truth. They see a piece of yours. The argument does not end with a winner and a loser. It ends with a new understanding, one that neither of you could have reached alone. The relationship is changed, not by avoiding conflict, but by passing through it. Or think of a family recipe. Maybe your grandmother made it one way, and your father changed it, and now you add your own twist. Each generation argues about the right way to do it. The old and the new push against each other. But the recipe survives, not by staying the same, but by absorbing every contradiction, every experiment, every stubborn refusal to do things the old way. The taste you know is the result of every argument that came before. Hegel believed that history itself works like this. Every age is a response to the one before. The Enlightenment's faith in reason was born from the chaos of superstition. The French Revolution's cry for freedom clashed with the terror that followed. Each time, the world did not simply swing back to where it started. It became something stranger, more complex, more alive. If this makes you uneasy, you are not alone. Hegel's vision means that conflict is not a sign of failure. It is the sign that something is happening, that the world is not finished with us yet. The river is always splitting, always rejoining, always moving forward. There is no final shore. So next time you feel the tension of opposites in your family, your country, your own mind, remember Hegel's river. The split is not the end. The current is still moving, and somewhere downstream, two currents are already merging into one, carrying us all into a future we cannot yet see. The rights of women. A mother sits at a small desk, candlelight flickering across her face, while her daughter sleeps in the next room. The world outside is silent, but inside, Mary Wollstonecraft is writing words that will not let her rest. She is not just writing for herself, or even for her daughter Mary Shelley, who will one day write her own monsters into being. but for every woman told she is less because she is born a woman. Wollstonecraft's pen moves quickly. She is tired, but the idea burns brighter than the flame. Women are not born inferior. They are made so, by locked doors and missing keys, denied the chance to learn, to speak, to shape their own lives. She writes that equality is not a favor to be granted, but a right to be claimed. The mind, she says, is not shaped by nature, but by what it is allowed to do. Imagine a door in your own house, closed for years, everyone saying it cannot be opened. Then one night, you find the key. The room beyond is not empty. It is filled with books, with light, with the possibility of something new. A page turns in the candlelight. The world does not change all at once, but the door is no longer locked. The greatest happiness. You know that feeling when you're stuck in a group project and the teacher says your grade will be whatever the happiest person in your group thinks it should be? Not the average, not the loudest voice, just the one who, at the end, feels the most joy. Suddenly, every decision, who does the work, who gets the credit, even what snacks you bring, turns into a strange kind of math. You start watching each other's faces, trying to guess what will tip the balance. It's not about following the rules. It's about reading the room and quietly adding up the smiles. John Stuart Mill in 19th century England took this idea and made it the heart of his philosophy. He called it utilitarianism. The right thing to do, he said, is whatever brings the greatest happiness to the greatest number. Not just your own happiness, not just your friends, everyone's. If you want to know what's good, you have to count the joy, and you have to count it for everyone who's affected. But Mill didn't stop there. He noticed something odd about happiness. Some pleasures, he said, are just better. Not bigger, not louder, better. The pleasure of reading a poem, or solving a puzzle, or hearing a piece of music that makes you shiver. These are different from the quick hit of a sweet snack or a funny joke. And here's the twist. Only people who've tasted both, the higher and the lower, can really judge which is worth more. Mill called this the test of the competent judge. If you've read Shakespeare and watched slapstick, and you still pick the slapstick, fine. But most people, he thought, would choose the deeper joy, even if it's harder to get. It's like that group project again. Imagine you're all deciding what to do with your afternoon. You could play video games, or you could go outside and build something together. The games are easy, fun, and everyone laughs. But building something, maybe a treehouse, maybe a garden, takes work. It's frustrating. You argue. But when you're done, the happiness is heavier. It lasts longer. And if you've done both, you know the difference. You can feel it in your bones. Mill's idea is both simple and quietly unsettling. Morality isn't a list of commands handed down from above. It's a calculation. You have to weigh every action, every consequence, every ripple of joy or pain, and you have to do it honestly, even when it's uncomfortable. There's no shortcut, no secret rule, just the endless work of adding up happiness and trusting that the sum matters more than the rule book. So picture that scale, teetering on the edge. On one side, the easy pleasures. On the other, the joys that take effort, that change you. The weight shifts, almost imperceptibly, until, just for a moment, it tips toward joy. And the calculation stands, silent and final, as if the world itself has done the math. The struggle of classes. The factory doors open with a groan, and a river of workers spills out into the fading light. Their faces are gray with exhaustion, shoulders hunched, hands stained by the day's labor. Some walk in silence. Others mutter about the foreman, the pay, the price of bread. The street is thick with the smell of oil and sweat. It's the end of another shift, but the struggle never clocks out. Karl Marx watched scenes like this in 19th century Germany, and he saw something most people missed. He saw a pattern repeating itself, not just in factories, but in every corner of history. Every society, he said, is built on a hidden war, not with guns or banners, but with paychecks, property, and power. The real story of humanity is not a march of progress, but a tug of war between those who have and those who do not. Marx called it class struggle. The owners, the bourgeoisie, hold the factories, the land, the money. The workers, the proletariat, have only their labor to sell. Every new machine, every law, every invention that promises to make life better for some, comes at a cost for someone else. Progress, in Marx's eyes, is never free. It is always paid for by hands that go numb on the rope. Think about a family dinner, where the same person always cooks, always cleans, always eats last. The meal gets made, the table is set, but the comfort of some is built on the quiet sacrifice of another. The more you look, the more you see it, in offices, in schools, in the way cities are drawn and redrawn. The world is a house, where the walls are always shifting, and someone is always left holding up the ceiling. Marx wrote Das Kapital, not as a dry theory, but as a warning. He believed that this struggle was not a glitch, but the engine of history itself. Empires rise, revolutions spark, kings fall, not because of ideas or inventions, but because the rope snaps, and those at the bottom refuse to pull any longer. He predicted that capitalism, with its endless hunger for profit, would eventually tear itself apart. The workers would see the game for what it was, and the whole system would tip. But here's the part that still stings. Every time the rope is pulled, it frays a little more. The winners grip tighter, the losers slip further back. There is no final victory, no moment when everyone lets go and rests. Even when the faces change, the struggle remains. The story is not about heroes or villains, but about the tension that never quite breaks. It's like living in a house where the floorboards creak under every step, and you can never quite forget that someone, somewhere, is holding up the weight so you can walk. You might not see their faces, but you feel the strain in the silence after the laughter, in the way the light falls across the kitchen table at night. Marx's vision is not a story with a happy ending. It's a question that lingers in the air, long after the factory gates have closed. The rope is still there, stretched between hands that ache, hands that hope, hands that slip. And as dusk settles, you can almost hear the quiet sound of fingers losing their grip. The struggle, unresolved. The tension, humming in the dark. The world as will. Think about the last thing you wanted so badly it hurt. Maybe it was a new phone, a job, someone's attention. You counted the days. You imagined how it would feel. Then you got it. And almost instantly, the wanting faded, replaced by a new itch, a new hunger. Arthur Schopenhauer, sitting in his small apartment in 19th century Germany, saw this cycle everywhere. He called it the will, a blind, endless force that drives every living thing. Not just you, but every animal, every plant, every cell, always reaching, always needing, never satisfied. It's like running on a treadmill that never stops. No matter how fast you go, the scenery never changes. You sweat, you ache, but the finish line keeps moving away. Schopenhauer didn't think reason or clever arguments could save us from this. He thought the mind was just another servant of the will, inventing excuses for why we want what we want. The only thing that could break the cycle, even for a moment, was compassion, the sudden, gut-level recognition of another's pain. Not logic, not rules, just the raw, uncomfortable feeling that someone else is suffering, and you can help. Most people keep running, eyes fixed on the next desire. But sometimes, someone steps off the treadmill, just long enough to help another up. The machine keeps humming. The struggle never ends. The will to power. You know that moment in a busy train station when everyone suddenly stands and moves in the same direction? The crowd surges, a single living thing, and for a second you feel yourself swept along. But then, out of the corner of your eye, you notice one person, just one, turning away, walking against the current, as if they heard a different song. Friedrich Nietzsche, in 19th century Germany, watched the world move in lockstep and wondered, what if most of what we call morality is just this, a herd instinct, a reflex to follow, not to think? In his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche called out the way societies use rules and customs to keep everyone in line. He saw traditional morality not as a universal truth, but as a tool, a way for the weak to control the strong, for the many to keep the few from standing out. He called this the herd morality. It is the comfort of moving with the flock, the safety of never questioning why everyone is heading the same way. But Nietzsche was not interested in comfort. He wanted to know what happens when someone dares to step out of line. Think of a flock of birds, startled by a sudden noise. They scatter in all directions, each one following the others, not because they know where to go, but because it feels safer to move together. Most of us live like this, Nietzsche said, not because we have chosen our values, but because we have inherited them, absorbed them, let them settle into our bones, without ever asking if they are truly ours. It is like growing up in a house where everyone eats dinner at the same time, in the same way, every night. You do it because it is what you have always done. But what if, one evening, you decide to eat alone, or to skip the meal entirely? The room feels colder. The silence is heavier. You realize how much of your life is shaped by habits you never chose. Nietzsche's idea of the will to power is not about dominating others, but about the courage to invent your own path. To become fully human, he said, you must create your own values, even if it means walking away from the crowd. The Übermensch, the overhuman, is not a superhero, but a person who refuses to let the herd decide what is good or bad for them. Morality, for Nietzsche, is not a law written in the stars. It is a social construct, built and rebuilt by people who are often more interested in safety than in truth. The real danger, he thought, is not in breaking the rules, but in never questioning who wrote them in the first place. So picture that single figure, turning away from the crowd, stepping into the unknown. No map, no applause, just the sound of their own footsteps fading into the dark. The rest of us watch, uncertain, and wonder what it would feel like to follow. The leap of faith. Your heart is pounding. You are standing in the hallway, phone in hand, thumb hovering over the button that will change everything. Maybe it is a job offer. Maybe it is a confession. Maybe it is the moment you decide to leave or to stay. The world seems to hold its breath. You want a sign. You want a guarantee. But all you have is the silence before the leap. Søren Kierkegaard, a quiet, anxious man in 19th century Denmark, knew this feeling better than anyone. He wrote a book called Fear and Trembling, and he meant every word. Kierkegaard believed that the most important choices in life are the ones that cannot be solved by thinking harder. No amount of logic, no pile of evidence, no careful plan can erase the risk. The only way forward is to jump and hope the ground will appear beneath your feet. He called this the leap of faith. Not faith as in blind belief, or faith as in comfort. Faith, for Kierkegaard, was the courage to act when you have no proof. It is the moment you step into the dark, knowing you might fall. It is not about answers. It is about risking everything for something you cannot see. He told the story of Abraham, the old man who heard a voice telling him to sacrifice his son Isaac. Abraham did not know if the voice was real. He did not know if he was doing the right thing. He only knew that to obey meant risking everything he loved. Kierkegaard did not care about the ending. He cared about the moment Abraham raised the knife, not knowing what would happen next. That is the real test. That is the leap. If you have ever stood at the edge of a diving board, toes curled over the rough surface, you know this feeling. You look down. The water is blue, but you cannot tell how deep it is. You ask yourself, will I be safe? Will I regret this? You want someone to measure the pool, to promise you it is fine. But the only way to know is to jump. Your body tenses. Your mind races. You are suspended between the life you know and the life you might have, if you dare. Or maybe it is smaller. Maybe it is the moment you send a message you cannot unsend. The moment you say, I love you, or I quit, or I am sorry. The moment you walk into a room and tell the truth, not knowing if you will be accepted or rejected. These are not logical moves. They are leaps. You do not get to know the outcome. You only get to choose. Kierkegaard called this anxiety the dizziness of freedom. The more real the choice, the more it shakes you. You want to be authentic, to live a life that is truly yours. But authenticity is not safe. It means choosing without guarantees. It means living with the possibility that you might be wrong, that you might lose, that you might never know if you did the right thing. Most people, Kierkegaard thought, spend their lives avoiding this moment. They follow the crowd. They do what is expected. They cling to rules and routines, anything to avoid the terror of the unknown. But the price is high. You can only become yourself by risking yourself. You can only find meaning by leaping, not by waiting for certainties. There is no trick to make it easier, no secret formula, no wise friend who can tell you what will happen. There is only the edge and your own trembling heart. The leap is always yours alone. So you stand there, breath caught, foot hovering. The world is silent. The water waits. And then, with no promise, no answer, no safety net, your foot leaves the edge. The Banality of Evil. A man sits at a desk, stamping papers. He does not look up. The line never ends. Each form slides toward him, blank and official, and his hand moves in rhythm. Stamp, slide, stamp, slide. He does not ask what the papers mean. He does not wonder who they are for. He is just doing his job. Hannah Arendt watched the trial of Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the trains that carried millions to their deaths. She expected a monster. Instead, she saw a man who spoke in clichés, who insisted he was only following orders. No rage, no hatred. Just a functionary, moving the conveyor belt along. Arendt called it the banality of evil. Not evil as a demon in the shadows, but as 1,000 small acts of thoughtless obedience. Like a kitchen assembly line, where each person adds one piece, never seeing the whole. No one stops the belt. No one asks why. Evil, she said, is what happens when people stop thinking for themselves, when the question dies and the routine takes over. Atrocity, not as a scream, but as a shrug. A stamp falls on a blank page. The sound echoes. Nothing changes. The conveyor keeps moving. The absurd. You wake up in the dark, and for a moment, you forget who you are. Then you remember. It's another day, and you have to push the boulder up the hill again. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's just getting out of bed. You push, and the boulder rolls back down. Tomorrow, you'll do it again. Albert Camus, born in Algeria, writing in the shadow of war and loss, saw this as the shape of every human life. In his book, The Myth of Sisyphus, he tells the story of a man condemned by the gods to roll a heavy stone up a mountain, only to watch it tumble back, forever. No escape, no reward, no meaning, just the endless climb. Camus looked at this story and saw something uncomfortably familiar. We search for meaning in love, in work, in faith, but the universe stays silent. No sign, no answer, just the cold wind at the top of the hill. The world does not care if you succeed or fail. It does not care if you are happy or broken. The universe, Camus said, is indifferent. Most people, when faced with this emptiness, reach for hope. Maybe there's a reason, just out of sight. Maybe the next push will matter. But Camus called this a trick we play on ourselves. Hope, he said, is just another way to avoid seeing things as they are. We invent stories, rituals, even gods, to cover up the silence. But the silence remains. Think about the way you keep tidying your kitchen, even though it will be messy again by nightfall. Or the way you answer emails, knowing the inbox will refill. You do the laundry, fold the shirts, and the next day the basket is full. The work never ends. The reward is always just out of reach. You keep going, not because you believe the work will be finished, but because stopping feels worse. Camus said the only real question is this: if life is absurd, if nothing lasts, why keep going at all? Why not just let go of the boulder and walk away? He did not offer comfort. He did not promise that meaning would appear if you just tried hard enough. He refused to lie, but he also refused to look away. In the end, Camus imagined Sisyphus at the top of the hill, pausing for a moment before the stone rolls back down. The sun is setting. The air is cold. Sisyphus looks at the boulder, and he smiles. There is no answer. The absurd remains. And still, the boulder waits. Existence precedes essence. You stand in front of a locked door. You jiggle the handle, check your pockets for a key, press your ear to the wood. The hallway is silent. You wait, hoping someone will come along with the answer, or at least a way out. But the longer you stand there, the more you notice the door has no lock at all. It never did. The only thing keeping you here is the belief that you cannot leave. Jean-Paul Sartre, in a smoky Paris cafe in the 1940s, looked at the world and saw this same illusion everywhere. People waiting for permission, for a sign, for a rule book that would tell them who to be. But Sartre's voice cut through the fog. There is no blueprint for being human. No secret instructions, no cosmic architect. You are not born with a purpose stamped on your soul. You invent yourself, moment by moment, with every choice you make and every choice you refuse to make. He called this the terror and the gift of freedom. In his book Being and Nothingness, Sartre wrote that existence comes first. You are thrown into the world, and only afterward do you decide what you will become. There is no essence, no fixed nature waiting for you to discover it. You are condemned to be free, even if you try to hide, to let others decide for you, to drift along with the crowd. That, too, is a choice. You cannot escape responsibility. Even not choosing is a kind of choosing. It's a strange kind of prison. The door is always open, but stepping through means leaving behind the comfort of excuses. Imagine standing in your kitchen, staring at the fridge. You're hungry, but you don't know what you want. You open the door, close it, open it again. You wait for the food to tell you what to eat, for the shelves to reveal your destiny. But the fridge is silent. It will not choose for you. You have to decide, and whatever you pick, or if you walk away hungry, that is your answer. The responsibility is yours, even in the smallest things. Sartre's insight is not gentle. It's the feeling of realizing that the locked door you've been blaming for your stuckness was never locked at all. The world is not waiting to reveal your purpose. There is no script, no role you were born to play. You write the script as you go, and every line is yours alone. He saw this as both a burden and a kind of dignity. You cannot blame your nature, your past, or the stars. You are the author, and the page is blank until you move the pen. Even refusing to write is a sentence in your story. Sartre watched people try to escape this truth by following orders, by clinging to tradition, by pretending they had no choice. But he insisted, you are always choosing, even when you pretend not to. It's unsettling, isn't it? The idea that there is no one coming to unlock the door, no one to tell you who you are. The freedom is total, and so is the weight. You can't hand it off, not really. Even if you let someone else decide, you chose to let them. Even if you do nothing, you chose to do nothing. The responsibility is inescapable, and it never goes away. Maybe that's why so many people stand in front of doors, waiting. It's easier to believe you're trapped than to admit you could walk away at any moment. It's easier to blame the lock than to accept the risk of opening it. But the truth is quieter and stranger. The door was never locked. It was only waiting for you to turn the handle. And so, you stand there, hand resting on the doorknob, feeling the weight of a freedom that will not let you go. The power of language. You know that feeling when you're playing a game, and just as you think you've figured out the rules, someone changes them? Suddenly, what counted as a win is now a foul, and the words you use to argue your case only seem to tangle things further. Ludwig Wittgenstein, sitting in a small room in Cambridge, saw philosophy as a game like this, but with words. He believed that most of the puzzles that tie our minds in knots are not deep mysteries, but simple mix-ups in how we use language. Wittgenstein's idea was almost mischievous. Words don't have secret meanings hiding inside them. They mean what we do with them, the way a chess piece means something only because of how it moves on the board. If you try to pin down a word's meaning by looking it up in a dictionary, you miss the point. The meaning is in the playing, not the rule book. So when philosophers get stuck, Wittgenstein said, it's usually because they're trying to use words outside the games they belong to, like trying to play soccer with chess rules, or asking why a joke isn't a sandwich. The confusion isn't in the world, it's in the way we talk. Listen closely as you say a word. Notice how it shifts, stretching and shrinking, never quite the same twice. The word itself is playing with you, changing shape as it leaves your mouth. Becoming a woman. Imagine slipping on a costume for a school play. At first, it feels strange. The fabric stiff, the seams scratching your skin, the mask a little too tight. You move awkwardly, aware of every gesture, every glance from the audience. But as the hours pass, something shifts. The costume stops feeling foreign. You start to move as if it belongs to you. By the end of the night, you catch yourself in the hallway mirror and, for a moment, you almost believe you are the character you've been pretending to be. Simone de Beauvoir, in 20th century France, saw something quietly unsettling in this transformation. In her book, The Second Sex, she wrote a sentence that still echoes. One is not born, but becomes a woman. It sounds simple, almost obvious. But it was a crack in the foundation of everything people thought they knew about gender. De Beauvoir looked at the world and saw that being a woman was treated as a destiny, a fact, like eye color or height. But what if it was more like that costume? What if gender was something you learned to wear, day after day, until it felt like your own skin? Think about the first time you tried to walk in shoes that didn't quite fit. Maybe you borrowed a pair for a wedding, or tried on your parents' boots as a child. At first, every step is careful, uncertain. But if you wear them long enough, your feet start to mold to the shape. The blisters fade. You forget you're even wearing them. The shoes become part of how you move through the world. De Beauvoir noticed that girls are taught, from the earliest days, how to sit, how to speak, how to shrink or smile or apologize. These lessons are everywhere, in lullabies, in glances, in the way adults praise or scold. Over time, the rules become habits. The habits become invisible. And what started as a performance becomes a second skin. But here's the twist. If gender is something you become, not something you are, then it can be unlearned, remade, resisted. The process is never finished. There is no final costume change, no moment when the mask fuses to the face forever. Every day, the seams can be loosened, the fabric reshaped. De Beauvoir's insight is not just about women. It's about anyone who has ever felt the weight of a role they did not choose. It's about the quiet power of noticing that what feels natural may only be familiar, and that what is familiar was once learned, step by step, stitch by stitch. So imagine, for a moment, standing in front of a mirror. The costume you've worn for years hangs on your shoulders. But tonight, you see the threads. You see the places where it pinches, the places where it stretches. And for the first time, you wonder what it would feel like to take it off, or to sew something new. The reflection stares back, not as a destiny, but as a question. And the answer is still becoming. Power and truth. A surveillance camera does not blink. It just sits there, high in the corner, humming quietly, watching. You know it is there, even when you forget. You act differently. You wonder who is on the other side of the lens and what they see, or what they want to see. Michel Foucault, born in France in 1926, spent his life staring back at the camera. He wanted to know who decides what counts as truth. In his book, Discipline and Punish, Foucault traced the way power seeps into every corner of life, not just through laws or police, but through schools, hospitals, prisons, even the words we use to describe ourselves. He said that power is not just something a king or a president holds. It is a web, invisible but everywhere, shaping what we believe, what we do, even what we think is possible. Foucault's most disturbing idea is this: what we call truth is often just the echo of whoever holds the microphone. The facts you learn in school, the diagnoses you get from a doctor, the rules that decide who is sane and who is dangerous. All of these are shaped by the people and institutions that have the power to define them. Truth, he said, is not a pure thing waiting to be discovered. It is built, brick by brick, by those who control the tools of knowledge. Imagine a mirror in your hallway. You trust it to show you your own face. But what if, every time you looked, the mirror only reflected what someone else wanted you to see? Maybe it smooths out your wrinkles, or adds a scar that was never there. Maybe it hides the bruise on your cheek, or erases the tiredness in your eyes. You would start to doubt your own reflection. You might even forget what you really look like. Foucault said that society is full of these mirrors. The news, the textbooks, the medical charts, the job interviews. Each one is a surface that reflects back not just reality, but the desires and fears of those in charge. And the more you look, the more you start to believe that what you see is all there is. Think about your kitchen. You open the fridge, and you see what is on the front shelf: milk, eggs, maybe a leftover slice of cake. But what if someone else decides what goes in the fridge, and what gets pushed to the back? What if the light only turns on when they want it to? You might never notice the things that are hidden behind the milk, or the food that quietly spoils in the dark. You would plan your meals around what you think is there, never realizing how much is missing. Foucault's point is not that there is no truth, but that truth is always tangled up with power. The rules of the game are written by those who already have the ball. The questions you are allowed to ask, the answers you are allowed to hear, the facts you are allowed to know, all of these are shaped by invisible hands. And the most dangerous power is the kind that does not look like power at all. It looks like common sense. It looks like the way things have always been. He called this the regime of truth. Not a single lie, but a whole system that decides what counts as knowledge and who gets to speak. In Discipline and Punish, Foucault showed how prisons and schools and hospitals do not just punish or heal or teach. They create categories. They sort people into normal and abnormal, healthy and sick, sane and mad. And once those categories exist, they become real. People start to live inside them, to see themselves through the eyes of the system. If you feel uneasy, you are not alone. Foucault wanted you to feel that way. He wanted you to notice the camera in the corner, the mirror that does not quite match your memory, the fridge that never seems to have what you need. He wanted you to ask, who put this here? Who decides what I see? There is no comfort at the end of this thought. Only the quiet, mechanical blink of a camera lens in the dark, watching, recording, deciding what will be remembered and what will be forgotten. And becoming. You take a step, and the map in your hand shivers. The street you thought you knew bends, a new path appears, and the old one fades behind you. Gilles Deleuze, sitting in a Paris café, once said that nothing is ever truly finished. Reality, he argued, is not a set of fixed points, but a process, always shifting, always becoming. Most of us want the world to stay still, to let us pin down who we are, what we want, where we belong. But Deleuze saw identity as a river, not a stone. Every time you try to draw a border, the line blurs. Every time you say, "This is me," something in you is already moving on. It's like trying to follow a recipe when the ingredients keep changing in your hands. Or walking through a city where every turn redraws the streets behind you. So there's no way back, only forward, into difference. Deleuze wrote in 1,000 Plateaus that reality is a map that redraws itself as you walk. There are no final destinations, only endless crossings. And as you move, your footsteps dissolve behind you, the ground itself shifting, the journey never quite the same. The movement is all that remains. Gender as performance. Imagine a stage, but there's no curtain, no backstage, and no one ever leaves. The lights never dim. Every person you know, your friends, your parents, the stranger at the grocery store, is both actor and audience, improvising their lines, watching and being watched, all at once. You step onto this stage the moment you're born, handed a script you never auditioned for. Judith Butler, writing in late 20th century America, looked at this endless play and asked, what if gender is not something you are, but something you do? Butler's idea, in her book Gender Trouble, is almost unsettling in its simplicity. Gender, she says, is not a secret truth inside you. It's a performance, a set of repeated acts, gestures, and habits, rehearsed so many times, they start to feel like nature. You don't just have a gender, you enact it, over and over, until the lines blur between the role and the real. Think about the way you tie your shoes. Maybe you loop the laces the way your father did, or the way your mother showed you. At first, it's awkward, slow, a little forced. But after years of repetition, your hands move without thinking. The act becomes invisible, automatic. Butler says gender works like that. The way you walk, the pitch of your voice, the clothes you reach for in the morning, each is a tiny rehearsal, a line delivered to an audience that is always there, even if it's just your own reflection. Drag performance makes this visible. In a drag show, the performer puts on exaggerated makeup, a wig, a dress or a suit, and steps into a role that is both playful and precise. The audience laughs, cheers, gasps, but the real trick is that drag doesn't create something fake. It reveals that all gender is, in some way, a costume. The difference is only that most of us forget we're wearing it. Butler's insight is not that gender is meaningless, or that it can be shrugged off like a jacket. The performance is real, and the stakes are high. The script is enforced by glances, jokes, punishments, and sometimes violence. But the script is not written in stone. It's written in chalk, smudged and rewritten by every new performance, every act of resistance, every moment someone forgets their line or improvises a new one. If you've ever felt the pressure to act a certain way, to lower your voice, to cross your legs, to hide a part of yourself, you've felt the weight of the script. If you've ever caught yourself performing and wondered who you were doing it for, you've glimpsed the stage. And so, the play goes on. The audience claps, the actors bow, and somewhere, a mask is set down on a table. But the room is quiet. The mask waits. The performance lingers, unresolved. The Veil of Ignorance. You are standing in line at a small-town gas station, clutching a lottery ticket. But this is not the usual kind. The numbers are blank. The prize is a secret. The rules. You must buy the ticket before you know what you might win or lose. Would you still play? Would you change the game if you could? John Rawls, an American philosopher in the 20th century, built his entire theory of justice on this feeling. In his book, A Theory of Justice, Rawls asked a question that sounds simple, but quietly explodes everything we think we know about fairness. If you had to design the rules of society, but you had no idea whether you would be rich or poor, healthy or sick, powerful or powerless, what rules would you choose? He called this the veil of ignorance. Imagine you are about to be born, but you do not know anything about who you will be. Not your gender, not your race, not your family, not your talents, not even your luck. You are just a mind, floating in the dark, about to draw a ticket from the pile. The only thing you know is that, once you pick, you cannot put it back. Rawls's insight is almost embarrassingly obvious once you hear it. Most of us, when we make rules, imagine ourselves on the winning side. We picture ourselves as the ones who will benefit. But if you had to play the lottery of life, and you might end up anywhere, suddenly, fairness stops being a slogan. It becomes a survival strategy. Think about the last time you split a dessert with a friend. One person cuts, the other chooses. If you are the one slicing the cake, you pay attention. You try to make the pieces as equal as possible, because you might get either one. That is the veil of ignorance in miniature. It is not about being noble. It is about not wanting to get stuck with the smaller slice. Now, stretch that feeling out. Imagine you are setting the rules for an entire country. You do not know if you will be born into a mansion or a shelter, with a trust fund or a mountain of debt. You do not know if you will be healthy or if you will need help. You do not know if you will be in the majority or the one left out. Would you still design a world where the winner takes all? Or would you build in safety nets, just in case the ticket you draw is the losing one? Rawls argued that behind the veil of ignorance, most people would choose rules that are fair to everyone, not just themselves. Not because they are saints, but because they are afraid of being the one left out. Fairness, in Rawls's world, is not about charity. It is about impartiality. It is about making the rules as if you could be anyone. There is something quietly unsettling about this. It means that much of what we call justice is just luck, dressed up as principle. If you knew you might be the one at the bottom, would you still defend the rules at the top? Or would you start to see the game for what it is? A lottery, where the tickets are handed out before you even know you are playing. Rawls never claimed this was easy. The veil of ignorance is not a real place. It is a thought experiment, a way to shake us out of our habits. But once you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. Every law, every policy, every unspoken rule starts to look different. You start to wonder, who wrote these rules and who was holding the knife? The next time you hear someone talk about fairness, imagine their hand hovering over a pile of tickets, not knowing which one they will draw. Let the uncertainty hang there, just for a moment, before anyone dares to reach in. Pragmatism and truth. Think of a tool in your kitchen drawer, a can opener maybe. It sits there, silent, until the day you actually need to open a can. If it works, you keep it. If it doesn't, it's just clutter. William James, wandering the lecture halls of late 19th century America, looked at ideas the same way. He said truth is not a perfect mirror of reality. Truth is what works. If a belief helps you live, if it opens something in your life that was stuck, then it earns its place. If it doesn't, it's just another bit of mental junk. James called this pragmatism. He wrote about it in The Varieties of Religious Experience, arguing that the value of a belief is measured by its practical effects, not by how closely it matches some invisible blueprint. An idea is a tool, not a photograph. It's only true if it does something for you, if it helps you move, or act, or breathe a little easier. So the next time you reach for a belief, ask yourself, does it open anything? Or is it just taking up space? The truth, for James, is always in the using, and somewhere, a hand hovers over a drawer, pausing before picking up a tool, wondering if this time it will fit the job. Effective altruism. You are walking to work, coffee in hand, when you see a child slip into a shallow pond. The water is cold, the child is flailing, and for a split second, you freeze. Then your body moves before your mind can catch up. Shoes off, coffee dropped. You wade in and pull the child to safety. Your pants are soaked, your morning ruined, but you do not hesitate. No one would call you a hero. They would just call you human. Peter Singer, born in Australia in the 20th century, asks a question that feels almost cruel in its simplicity. If you would save a child drowning in front of you, why not save a child you will never see? Singer's thought experiment is not a trick. It is a mirror. He wants you to look at your own instincts and then notice the line you draw around them. The child in the pond is real, urgent, impossible to ignore. But what about the child who is just as real, just as vulnerable, but happens to be far away, in another country, another continent, another life? Singer's argument, first published in his essay Famine, Affluence, and Morality, is unsettling because it refuses to let you off the hook. He says, if you can prevent something bad from happening without sacrificing anything nearly as important, you ought to do it. Not as a nice gesture, as a duty. The pond is not just in your neighborhood. The pond is everywhere. This is the heart of effective altruism. It is not about feeling good or giving when it is convenient. It is about using reason and evidence to do the most good you can. Singer's followers count lives saved per dollar, compare charities by impact, and ask uncomfortable questions about what really helps. They do not want your spare change. They want your best effort. They want you to treat every child as if they were in that pond. Think about your own routines. You walk past the same park, the same pond, every day. You know the shape of the path, the sound of the ducks, the way the light hits the water in the morning. Now imagine that every time you pass, there is a chance a child could fall in. Would you start to avoid the park? Would you stop looking at the water? Or would you accept that the responsibility is always there, waiting, whether you see it or not? Singer's utilitarianism is ruthless in its logic. He says that failing to donate to an effective charity, one that can save a life, for the price of a new phone or a weekend away, is morally equivalent to walking past the drowning child and doing nothing. The distance is only in your mind. The need is just as real. It is a hard idea to live with. Most people do not want to be told that their comfort is built on invisible choices. But Singer does not let you look away. He asks you to imagine your hand reaching into the cold water, feeling the shock, the weight, the relief. He asks you to remember that moment, and then to realize the pond is always there, the child is always waiting, and the water is never as far away as you think. The ethics of strangers. You are in a city you have never visited before. The streets are unfamiliar, the language on the signs is strange, and the faces around you are all unknown. But then, from somewhere ahead, you hear a roar, cheering, laughter, a song you half remember. You turn a corner and see a crowd gathered around a glowing screen in a bar. They are all watching the same soccer match. Some wear red, some blue, some green. But when the ball hits the net, every voice rises together. For a moment, you are not a stranger. You are part of something larger, a pulse that runs through the crowd and out into the night. Kwame Anthony Appiah, born in Ghana, raised in England, living between continents, asks a question that feels almost too big to answer. What do we owe to people we have never met? His answer is unsettling in its simplicity. We owe them more than we think. Appiah calls this cosmopolitanism, the idea that our moral circle is not a fence around our family or our country or even our language, but a horizon that keeps moving outward, always wider than we expect. It sounds abstract until you notice how it sneaks into your life. Think about the way you root for a team. Maybe you have never set foot in Barcelona or Manchester or Accra, but you know the colors, the chants, the heartbreak of a missed penalty. You feel a connection to people you will never meet, in places you will never go. When your team scores, you celebrate with strangers in a bar, or online, or alone in your living room, knowing that somewhere, millions of others are feeling the same thing. The boundaries blur. The world shrinks. For 90 minutes, you are not just yourself. You are part of a global tribe. But Appiah's point is sharper than that. He says the real test comes not when we are celebrating, but when we are asked to care. It is easy to feel kinship with someone who wears your team's colors. Harder when the person in need is far away, or speaks a language you do not understand, or believes things you find strange. Yet Appiah insists our deepest obligations are not to those who are most like us, but to those who are most distant. The stranger on the other side of the world is not just a statistic or a face in a news story. They are part of the same human story. Their suffering, their joy, their hope, these are not foreign to us. They are echoes of our own. Imagine your kitchen table. Maybe it is cluttered with mail, or the remains of breakfast, or the quiet mess of daily life. Now imagine someone you have never met, in a city you have never seen, sitting at their own table, eating the same kind of bread, worrying about the same bills, laughing at the same kind of joke. The details are different, but the shape of the day is familiar. The world is full of these invisible parallels, lives running side by side, never touching, but always connected by the thin thread of shared experience. Appiah's cosmopolitanism is not a call to erase difference. He does not ask us to pretend that everyone is the same, or that culture and history do not matter. Instead, he asks us to notice how easily the lines we draw can shift. The person who was a stranger yesterday becomes a friend today. The cause that seemed distant becomes urgent when it touches someone you love. The world is a stadium where everyone wears different colors, but the game is the same, and the outcome matters to all of us. There is something quietly unsettling about this. It means that the excuses we use to shrink our circle, too busy, too far, too complicated, are just stories we tell ourselves. The truth is, the boundaries of moral concern are always wider than we think. Every time you cheer with strangers, or grieve for a disaster in a place you have never been, you are practicing a kind of global citizenship. You are admitting, if only for a moment, that your life is tangled up with lives you will never see. Appiah's book, Cosmopolitanism, is not a manifesto. It is more like a gentle nudge, a reminder that the world is both smaller and larger than it appears. Our responsibilities do not end at the edge of our neighborhood, or our nation, or our comfort zone. They stretch outward, following the paths of connection that run through every crowd, every city, every quiet kitchen table. And so, the crowd in the distant city begins to dissolve. The match ends, the cheers fade, and people drift away into the night. But each person carries something with them, a fragment of the same song, a memory of belonging, a question that will not quite let go. How wide is your circle? How far does your care reach? The song lingers, echoing the question that never ends.